Out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I'm paying the cost, I'm ready to win, yeah. Diffuse, bond, it can't be diffused. If you ain't thinking the same, then we playing by different rules. You can't see the vision, we living in different views. Until we complete the mission, keep getting up, never snooze. I walked a mile in my shoes, had the mind of a fool, chasing diamonds and jewels. Trust me, I was confused. Started minding my business and used my mind as a tool. Ended up finding my purpose and found a time to get to it. They told me I couldn't do it. They told me I couldn't make it. They sold it, could never break it. That's sadly mistaken. I need a piece of the pie. I want it so bad I can taste it. They told me keep on running toes, they gon' take them. Used to lose, built to win, applied myself, I felt it in. No time for the doubt, they counted me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I pay for the cost, I'm winning to win, yeah. Refuse to lose, I'm built to win, applied myself.
Welcome back to CTC. I'm your gracious host, Carl, and I'm back with another episode. Man, been a week. I ain't gonna say it's been a rough one, but it's been a fun one. You know, we got the finals coming up, everything. But today we're gonna talk about the SEC in review. And unlike the Big 12, who did me so dirty, the SEC was kind of your boy. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie, man. So before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps the network. It helps my channel, CTC, by the way of the Refuse to Lose Network. Please also check out the other shows the network has to offer. Like, for example, the main show, Refuse to Lose Show featuring Joe, Tomo, Dave. They normally go live, but I'm assuming they didn't go live today because we got the finals Thursday. They normally don't go live Wednesday, so they probably want to talk about the finals coming up on tomorrow. So stay tuned. Look out. CTC will be live tomorrow. Not CTC. The main show will be live tomorrow, excuse me. BWT, Baseball with Teddy. You're a Yankees fan. I think he told us that Yankees now have the best record in baseball, so shout out to him. But if you need anything baseball-wise, shout out BWT. Go to his channel. Check it out. We got FFC, Fantasy Football with Coach Coombs, who did an episode Saturday. You know, he normally does fantasy football, but right now nobody's doing fantasy football, so he's just talking off-season draft, things of that nature. Contract extensions with Waddle and Nico Collins. We just saw today Christian McCaffrey just got extended. So he's probably going to do an episode on that soon. Now, I'm not going to put no timetable on you, Coach, but check that out. We have Dave's Doghouse, highlights, lowlights of anything sports. You go to Dave's Doghouse, NBA, NFL, WNBA, MLB, college. Any highlight or lowlight, you can be in the doghouse or you can be a dog. That's Dave's Doghouse. Kings Talk with Joe Jordan. I told y'all before on several episodes, Joe is not going to do an episode until the finals is over. His words, not mine. Nobody cares about the Kings right now. Those are his words, not mine. So I'm going to wait. If you're a Kings fan, check it out. But if you already checked it out, won't get a new episode till later. RBO, Real Ballers Only. What in the world just happened? RBO, which is Real Ballers Only. That's an NBA show run by Vaughn. He does, NBA. Your rookies, your diamonds in the rough, your guys that don't really talk about. The guys you do talk about. He's a Magic fan, so he talks about the Magic. All that with RBO Vaughn. You got in the red corner, Ty, Ricky, and Tomo. They just did an episode Saturday. They weren't going to talk. I don't think they were going to talk about the exhibition of Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, but that got postponed. And I believe I got every show. And if I don't have every show, charge it to my head, not my heart. But I'm pretty sure that's all of them. But please like, comment, share, subscribe, and watch those shows. If you like what you're listening to, stick with us. Just go down the road, rabbit hole, give us a chance. That's all we ask. Now, we got to review this SEC. And again, I told y'all, for those who see the thumbnail, I told y'all, the champion gets the thumbnail. Bama won the SEC. Now, you might be saying, Carl, Georgia went undefeated. Yeah, Georgia won the SEC East. They did not win the entire SEC. Bama won the SEC West. Then they won the SEC title game, makes them the winner of the SEC. But Bama also goes first because I did it in alphabetical order, and that's just how it is. So SEC review. We got Alabama review. Alabama. Oh, as I'm not on the Alabama. Hold on, give me a second. I'm not on the Crimson side. I forgot. When I was doing the banners, I had to go through them so I can make sure my banners were in alphabetical order. So my bad. Alabama was coming off a 10-2, 6-2 year under Nick Saban. They lost to LSU in a key game, which LSU then went on to win the SEC West, so they did not come off any SEC championship game. But I had Alabama going 12-0, 8-0 in conference play. I got half of it right. Alabama did not go 12-0. They went 11-1, but they did go 8-0 in conference play. The one loss for Alabama this year was Texas. I thought I had them beating Texas. They lost that game. Jalen Milroe didn't look the greatest in that game. Then it comes out he was actually suspended or he got benched or whatever the case. Some people say the benching was masking the suspension. Some people say it wasn't. Whatever the case may be, Milroe did not play in the South Florida game, and that one became a close one. Side note, you might hear about South Florida in a couple months or a month, excuse me. You may not. But yeah, let's get into the schedule. So Alabama, I had them beating Middle Tennessee. They won. I had them beating Texas. They lost. And then they won out on the rest of the schedule, which I had them winning out on the rest of the schedule as well. Like I said, finishing 11-1, 8-0. I got 11 games right. One game away from a perfect Alabama prediction, but it is what it is. They then go on to win the SEC title game against Georgia 27-24. But they lose the Rose Bowl to Michigan 27-20 in OT. A game I felt like they should have brought home, but Michigan made the plays necessary to win at the end of the game, so they did not. But coming off a year with no Bryce Young, the receiving core, I mean, Jermaine Burton had to step up. Isaiah Bond did step up. Amari Knee-Black did step up. But, man, it's still not that Alabama core that we're used to with the Calvin Ridleys, the Julio Joneses, the Amari Coopers, those guys of the world. They didn't have any of those guys. Why am I blanking on one of their names? Whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. They did not have a guy like that, but they were still able to make the playoffs. So shout out to Nick Saban. Shout out to them. They had a really good defense. Got to move on, though, to lesser pastures. The Arkansas Razorbacks. The Razorbacks were coming off of a 6-6 season, 3-5 in conference. One of the weaker SEC East teams, but still competitive nonetheless. Almost beat LSU the year before the season. I thought that they would maintain. No, excuse me. I actually had them going 7-5, 3-5 in the regular season. I thought another year for KJ Jefferson would be cool. I know they brought back Rocket Sanders. I think he was hurt for the beginning of the year. I know they lost Drew Sanders, the linebacker. They lost Matt Landers. Lost Jaden Hazelwood, Dwight McGlover, the cornerback, which I wasn't too high on that cornerback. He came back, but yeah, man, I wasn't too high on Arkansas. 7-5, 3-5 was cool. They actually finished 4-8, 1-7. One conference win. I think the one win was what? Vandy? Maybe? No, they didn't even play Vandy. Their one win was Florida. So shout out to them. But I had Arkansas beating Western Carolina. They won. I had them beating Kent State. They won. I had them beating BYU. They actually lost. I had them losing to LSU. They lost. I had them beating Texas A&M. They lost. I had them losing to Ole Miss, which they lost. Had them losing to Alabama. They lost. I had them losing to Mississippi State. They lost. Had them losing to Florida. They actually won. Had them beating Auburn. They lost. Had them beating FIU. They won. And I had them beating Mizzou, which Mizzou won, and y'all know later, Mizzou completely destroyed my prediction. If you're a fan of CTC or been watching CTC, you know I've been giving Mizzou credit for proving me wrong and shutting me up. So shout out to them. But again, they finished 4-8, 1-7. I got 7 games right, 5 games wrong. Arkansas has now lost KJ Jefferson. I want to say he went to UCF, if I'm not mistaken. Under Gus Malzahn. I want to say that's where he went. I can't remember, but yeah, man, all in all, unsuccessful season for Arkansas, not even making a bowl, winning one game. I think they finished last in the SEC West, so that's just not a good year for them. Very underachieving year for Arkansas. But we move on to Auburn. Auburn was coming off a 5-7, 2-6 year. They did get Peyton Thorne from MSU, which I warned you. If you remember, I warned you, Auburn, Peyton Thorne, very inconsistent. Not mad that he was gone. Shout out my boy Joe, first comment with the fire emojis. Shout out my boy, appreciate you watching. But I warned y'all, Auburn, Peyton Thorne was not it, man. If it just not. I tried to give him an extra year. When we went to 10-2 and won the Cotton Bowl against Pitt, I'm like, all right, cool. But was that really Peyton Thorne? Or was that just Kenneth Walker having an amazing year? Then the following year come Peyton Thorne don't look the same. Even with Keon Coleman and I believe Jaden Reed, it does not look good with Keon Coleman and Jaden Reed. We all see what Keon Coleman just did for Florida State, and we all just seen what Jaden Reed did for the Packers. Did not look good for Peyton Thorne. I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm sorry. I'm out on Peyton Thorne. He went to Auburn. And he was in a battle with TJ Finley, I think, all year. Auburn lost Tank Bigsby, their best player on offense last year. But they did get Brian Batty, which, by the way, get well soon, Brian Batty. Hopefully he can recover from the gunshot wound. He did get shot maybe a week or two ago. The transfer from USF, the running back. Please, man, get well soon. Hopefully his career is not over under unfortunate scenario, man. You hate to see it. You really do. And they also got my boy Jair Shorter from North Texas, the transfer wide receiver from North Texas. But all in all, let's get into the season. I had Auburn finishing 6-6, 2-6. I had them beating UMass, which they won. I had them beating Cal, which they won. I had them beating Sanford, which they won. Had them losing to Texas A&M, they lost. Had them losing to Georgia, they lost. Had them losing to LSU, they lost. Had them losing to Ole Miss, they lost. Had them beating Mississippi State, which they won. Had them beating Vandy, which they won. Had them losing to Arkansas, which they actually won, and I had them beating New Mexico State, which they actually lost to Diego Pavea in New Mexico State. And then I had them losing to Alabama, which, oh my God, they almost won that game. It took a 4th and goal from the 29, Hail Mary prayer, whatever you want to call it, to Isaiah Bond for Alabama to pull that game off. But Auburn eventually finished 6-6, 3-5. So I got the overall record right. I just did not get the conference record right. 1 game off the conference record. Got 10 games right, 2 games wrong. They did make a bowl game, and they did get stomped by University of Maryland in the Music City Bowl. In my opinion, though, with how bad Auburn's offense was, I think it was a success. I think this season was a success because they made a bowl game. Now, in Auburn standards, this is an epic failure. But if we're just going to talk about the talent on the roster and just the roster in general, not Auburn standards of Cam Newton and even when they made the championship with Nick Marshall and the team that got screwed back in 2004 with King Dunlap in them, we're not throwing those standards out. We're just talking about just a season in itself successful. 6-6, terrible offense to make a bowl game, to not finish last. Success for this season. Again, in Auburn standard, this is an epic failure, not even close to a success. But if we're just looking at it in a vacuum of a season, success for Auburn. Hugh Freeze got a lot of work to do, man. He got a lot of work to do down there in Auburn, but I don't know. But we move on to Florida, the Florida Gators. Now, Florida was coming off of a 6-6, 3-5 year under Billy Napier. They were supposed to get Jaden Rashada, which, if you remember now, there's a lot of NIL disputes, and Jaden Rashada claims he ain't get paid. He's suing, all this other stuff. It's messy. He ended up decommitting. He ended up going to Arizona State, which I ain't going to lie, he didn't look that great at Arizona State, but Arizona State in itself did not look that great of a team. But yeah, Graham Mertz ended up being the transfer starter from, I want to say from Wisconsin. I had Florida going 6-6, 4-4. I wasn't a fan of Graham Mertz. I didn't see a lot of improvement at the receiver position. I love Ricky Pearsall, but that was just about it for real. They did lose. Xavier Henderson? He did follow Emory Jones to Cincinnati. So I wasn't sold. And they actually finished 5-7, 3-5. Let's go over the schedule. So I had them losing to Utah, which they lost. Had them beating McNeese, which they did. I had them losing to Tennessee. They actually won that game. Did not think about Tennessee and their ability to not win in Florida no matter what. It's just like no matter the teams that Florida and Tennessee has, Tennessee cannot win. This was the year to end that curse, and they still could not do it. So Tennessee in the swamp is just an automatic L for here on out. Had them beating Charlotte, which they won. Had them beating Kentucky, which they lost. Now, that was probably more so due to the fact that I'm not a fan of Devin Leary, more so than Florida, because, man, if Devin Leary wasn't a quarterback, I probably would pick Kentucky. I probably would have, because Ray Davis and Kentucky's normally having a defense. I would have definitely picked Kentucky, but I didn't. They lost. Ray Davis absolutely went stupid that game. I had them beating Vandy. They won. I had them losing to South Carolina, and they should have lost that game, but South Carolina defense did not hold a game. Ricky Pearsall made some plays, and we lost. I had them losing to Georgia. They lost. I had them beating Arkansas, which they lost. I had them losing to LSU. They lost. I had them beating Mizzou, which they lost. And I had them losing to Florida State, which they lost. Again, finishing 5-7, 3-5. I got 7 games right, 5 games wrong. And this was honestly a failure of a season for Florida. Now I understand Billy Napier, he's new. I understand you didn't have the 5-star freshman, Jada Rashada, like you thought you would have. I understand that. I understand Graham Mertz is probably a bridge quarterback, even though he's still on the roster this year, and they got DJ. But he was supposed to be a bridge. Jada Rashada, he was supposed to be the bridge for DJ Lagway. But all in all, man, it's just not a successful season in my opinion. Don't make a bowl game as your Florida. That's bad. Not making a bowl game is terrible for Florida. Not only do you not make a bowl game, you just don't look good, like, at all. Florida did not look good in my opinion. I'm sorry. To me, that just is what it is. Florida didn't look good. So, unsuccessful season. And it can land Billy Napier in the hot seat if they don't give him time to get his guys in the program. They don't give Napier a chance to get his guys in and get them up to speed. He can get let go a little early, and that could be a bad thing, man. So I hope Florida give him a chance, but y'all know how it is these days with these programs. We want instant success. We want instant turnaround, especially at a school like Florida, who's had the Tebows, the Chris Leaks, and they had Cam, but then he got in trouble. But y'all know what I'm saying, the Steve Spurriers, they want it now. The Urban Meyers, they want it now. So moving on to Georgia Bulldogs. Now, Georgia's coming off a national championship year back-to-back. Kirby Smart still acting like Georgia's the underdogs. Nobody picking y'all to win. You got to keep his players on their toes. Stetson Bennett, a huge part of those 2 natties, did leave, as well as Darnell Washington, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, and Keely Ringo. But they kept Brock Bowers. There we go. Brock Bowers was still ineligible for the draft, so he stayed. He was there. Carson Beck was being talked about. You got Robert Thomas, who transferred in. You got Dominic Levitt, who transferred in from Mizzou. So it was some pieces coming in to make Georgia potentially a three-peat. I had Georgia going undefeated in the regular season, 12-0, 8-0, and that's exactly what they did. They went 12-0, 8-0, giving me a perfect prediction of Georgia's record. Ran through a lot of teams. South Carolina did put up a fight in the first half. I believe Juice Wells got hurt on the first possession, and he was out for the rest of the year. And I think that did hurt South Carolina's offense. And then Georgia running game, that hurt. The defense started to sink their teeth into the game in the second half. But South Carolina did put up a threat. And that's one of the only games I remember. Mizzou put up a little threat, but I think Brady Cook threw a late game interception. That kind of derailed Mizzou's chance of beating Georgia, which for the second year in a row, by the way, Mizzou actually put up a chance. Mizzou, I think, was Georgia's biggest test before the playoffs. Because if you remember the playoffs last year, or was that 2 years ago when Ohio State made that game? I think that was last year when Ohio State took Georgia in the OT. Should have won the game off a missed field goal. They missed the field goal. Should have made it. I believe that was last year. Yeah, because that was CJ Stroud's last year. Yep. Should have beaten Georgia in the playoffs. That was Georgia's honest, all season's biggest test. But before that, Mizzou was the biggest test. But man, honestly, if they didn't, it's a not a successful season if you're Georgia because they didn't get the natty. Like at this point, Georgia's natty or bust, right? So we get that. So for Georgia standards, not three-peating was not a successful season. You didn't win the SEC title game, so it's not a successful season. But going undefeated, you get a New Year's Six bowl, which Florida State just mailed it in. They won the Orange Bowl 63-3 against Florida State. Again, Florida State just mailed it in. They didn't care. They felt like they got robbed for the college football playoffs. I kind of feel like they got robbed for the college football playoffs. So Florida State was like, why are we even playing this game? It don't matter. But honestly, not a successful season for Georgia because they didn't get a natty. So got to move on. Hold on. Yeah, see, unsuccessful season. I agree. He said not only did they not three-peat, they missed the playoffs exactly by losing to Bama, which I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. But we got to move on to Kentucky. Kentucky, I talked a little bit about them. Kentucky did lose, coming off a 7-5 season, did lose Will Levis to the pros. They picked them back up with Devin Leary, in my opinion. They lost Chris Rodriguez to the pros. Shout out, Joe. Chris Rodriguez is on the Commanders. By the way, told you, that boy's a tough runner. I told people he's a tough runner. I thought that was a good pickup by them. Jordan Dingle returned, actually. DeAndre Square, he lost him. They lost Jordan Wright. Ray Davis transferred in from Vandy, who had an amazing year at Kentucky. I had Kentucky going 6-6, 2-6, mainly, again, because of Devin Leary. Oh, Joe just pushed the 100 emoji about Chris Rodriguez. But yeah, mainly because of Devin Leary. I had him going 6-6. Why am I blanking? Is it Mark Stoops? I want to say Kentucky's head coach is Mark Stoops. He's been doing a fine job at Kentucky. He's been turning Kentucky, he's been trying to turn Kentucky. Yeah, Mark Stoops. He's been trying to turn Kentucky into a football school. I think he got a 10-win season like 2 years ago when they beat Iowa in the Music City Bowl. I want to say that was 21-0 too. I'm double checking that right now. Yeah, 10-3. He won the Citrus Bowl, 2021. He went 10-3, won the Citrus Bowl, and let's see what that I was good. I believe that was against Iowa. Yep, against Iowa 20-17. So shout out to him. The Music City Bowl, he must have lost 21-0. Yeah, they lost 21-0 in the Music City Bowl. That was 2022. They had 7 wins that year. But yeah, he had a 10-3 season, like I said, 2 years ago. So shout out to him. He's trying. He's trying. It's hard in the SEC football for Kentucky to beat, but he's doing a good job at Kentucky, in my opinion. Hey, Joe, don't disrespect me like that. Talking about Will Levis is your boy. Don't disrespect me like that, brother. Knock it off. Me and Ace, and we got our opinions about bro. But let's get into the season. So again, I had them finishing 6-6, 2-6. They actually finished 7-5, 3-5. So a step up above what I had them. I had them beating Ball State, which they won. I had them beating Eastern Kentucky, which they won. I had them beating Akron, which they won. I had them beating Vandy, which they won. Again, I had them losing to Florida, which they actually won. I had them losing to Georgia. They lost. I had them beating Mizzou. Mizzou came out of nowhere. They lost. I had them losing to Tennessee, which they lost. I had them losing to Mississippi State, which they actually won. I had them losing to Bama, which they won. I had them losing to South Carolina, which they lost. And I had them beating Louisville, which they won. Hindsight, that's a great win because Louisville ended up being ACC champion, runner-up. Didn't have Louisville being that good in that prediction. So shout out to them for winning that one. Again, they lost the Gator Bowl 38-35 to Clemson. So a pretty good game. More of a high-scoring game you think of if you think of Kentucky, Clemson. That's way too many points in a game where you think Kentucky, Clemson. But that is what it is. In my opinion, this Kentucky season was a success. Again, Mark Stoops makes another bowl game. Now he lost, but one, he exceeded my expectations. 2, I think he exceeds a lot of people's expectations every year. Kentucky, again, is not a football school, but he's trying his best to. And again, to get 7 wins, another bowl game, it's a testament to how consistent of a coach Mark Stoops is. Do I ever think Kentucky could be at the heights to where they can win the SEC? Probably not. Maybe they have a year when they could do that or get close, runner-up, something, maybe. But, like, to Kentucky to overthrow a Georgia, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss, now Texas and Oklahoma, no. I think Kentucky's content would be a middle of the pack. Like I said, running off a 10-win season 1 year. They cool with that. So that's a success in my opinion. Next, we're going to go to LSU. LSU is another team I perfectly predicted. LSU was coming off a 9-3 season, 9-4 if you include the SEC title loss. No, excuse. Yeah, 9-4 if you include the title loss. Then they 6-2 in the conference, and then they won the Citrus Bowl versus Purdue. Jaden bro, the offense returned. So Jaden Daniels returned. Mason Taylor was a freshman, so he obviously returned. Malik Neighbors returned. Brian Thomas was on the team. Keyshawn Boutte was gone. He did go for the pros. Harold Perkins returned. He was a freshman, so he had to come back. They lost Jay Ward and Mekhi Garner to the NFL. Logan Diggs transferred in from Notre Dame, the running back. But they had a lot of offensive guys coming in. Not coming in, like returning. So the offense was primed for a big season. And Jaden Daniels delivered that, getting the Heisman with 50 total touchdowns. Those yards, the rushing yards, probably taking a lot of hits he shouldn't have took, especially Ole Miss game. But he had an amazing season. I had LSU finishing 9-3, 6-2. They finished 9-3, 6-2. I had them losing to Florida State. My boy Keon Coleman coming out party. They lost. I had them beating Grambling. They won. I had them beating Mississippi State. They won. I had them beating Arkansas. They won. I had them losing to Ole Miss. They lost. I had them beating Mizzou. They won. I had them beating Auburn. They won. I had them beating Army. They won. Had them losing to Alabama. Could not stop Alabama on offense. They lost. I had them beating Florida. They won. I had them beating Georgia State. They won. And I had them beating Texas A&M. I predicted every game correctly, every win, every loss. Again, going to 9-3, 6-2. They did win the ReliaQuest Bowl against Wisconsin 35-31. Jaden did not play in that game. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, I believe, played like the first quarter to the first half. I really can't remember. But Garrett Nussmeier, he looked good. He looked pretty good in the game, slinging the ball around. Now, LSU, the only reason why LSU wasn't in contention for the playoffs is because that defense could not stop. Man, that defense was not good. I'm sorry. The defense was a letdown. When you have guys like Mekhi Wingo, Harold Perkins, I can't even remember the other. Is it Major Burns? I think Major Burns. When you got guys that are that good, you have to mesh well. But they just didn't. LSU defense did not mesh well. They could not stop people. They lost the Ole Miss game 51-45 or something like that. They could not stop people. Again, the Alabama game, they could not stop the Alabama offense. They just were not good on the defensive end. The Florida State game. Once Florida State buckled down on defense and got some stops, shout out Ronaldo Green. Thank you. You're welcome, Dave. They just could not get stops. They could not stop Florida State once Florida State got in the groove. And it cost them. It cost them a chance at the SEC, and it cost them a chance at possibly the playoffs and possibly a natty. Jaden Daniels in the offense did everything in their power to try to have LSU in that SEC title race. The defense, man, that is what held them back. But all in all, I say for LSU, the season was a success. Jaden wins a Heisman. I get that's individual success, but it's a success nonetheless. Jaden goes first round. Malik Neighbors goes first round. Brian Thomas goes first round. 3 first-round offensive players in the past years in the 2024 draft. I have to say the season was a success, man. The season was necessary to get the job done. In terms of college success, I think it was cool. Obviously, you're LSU, so you want a chance to play for the Natty. But, 2019 was 5 years ago, bro. This season, in my opinion, was a success for LSU. Now, can Coach Kelly improve on this season? That's yet to be known, because I know Kyron Lacey is coming back, but I don't know if they got the receivers to get him. That's my need. I don't know if this defense could get the clicking. I don't know. That it remains to be seen. Yo, shout out Unc. Shit was good, Unc. Shout out my Unc right there. Drink Pepsi. All right, but we gotta move on from LSU to Mississippi State. Mississippi State, man. Coming off an 8-4, 4-4 year with Will Rogers. Will Rogers returned, but if you remember, if you're in the college football chats, I wasn't the biggest fan of Will Rogers. I think Will Rogers is good, but I think he was a little overhyped. They lost Robert Thomas to Georgia. They lost Emmanuel Forbes to the Commanders, to the NFL first-round pick. Yeah, man, they Mike Wright came in from Vandy, the quarterback, which didn't matter. They had Will Rogers, but Yeah, I wasn't too high on Mississippi State. I actually had Mississippi State going 6-6, 2-6. They actually finished the season 5-6. They finished the season 5-7, 1-7. So I was literally one game off. The one game that I was off was Kentucky. Again, Devin Leary bites me in the behind. I picked Mississippi State to beat Kentucky because I figured, as much as I don't like Will Rogers, as much as I feel like he's a little bit overrated, like I don't think he's trash. No, just think he's slightly overrated, and that's all. I don't think he's trash. I don't think none of that. Just think he's a little bit overrated. He got accuracy. He has all that. That's a little overrated, but I know I'm like Will Rogers is the better quarterback between Devin Leary. I think Will Rogers ended up getting hurt, if I'm not mistaken, this past season. But Kentucky actually beat Mississippi State. I had as an L. Kentucky won. That's literally the only game I got wrong. I had them beating Southeast Louisiana. They won. I had them beating Arizona. They won, which that ended up being a great win because Arizona, once they let Noah Fafita take over, like I discussed in the Pac-12 review, they ain't look back. They started cooking with grease. LSU, I had them losing to LSU. They lost. LSU went stupid. That was one of the games actually LSU defense played well. South Carolina, had them losing South Carolina, they lost. Had them losing to Bama, they lost. Had them beating Western Michigan, they won. Had them beating Arkansas, they won. Had them losing to Auburn, they lost. Kentucky game, had them winning, they lost. Had them losing to Texas A&M, they lost. Had them beating Southern Miss, they won. And I had them losing to Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl again. Literally 11 games right, one game off of a perfect record. I was hurt behind that. But in my opinion, this is a failure of a season for Mississippi State. Failure of a season, you don't make a bowl game. You don't make a bowl game. 5-7. I just think the season was a failure. Hold on. Yeah, he did get hurt. So Will Rogers did get hurt. I thought he got hurt. But he got hurt. I don't think he played in the Kentucky game. Oh, hold on. Let me get this out of here. I'm trying to find it now. I don't think he played in the Kentucky game though. Yeah, I don't think he played. Matter of fact, let me do this. I'm gonna go to the Kentucky Mississippi State game. I don't know why here we go. Make sure I type in football because y'all know basketball will come up quick when it comes to Kentucky. They lost 24-3. And let's see, box score. Nope, Devin Leary didn't. Not Devin Leary. Jesus, I'm looking at Devin Leary name. Will Rogers didn't play. Mike White played. So yeah, that might have. If Will Rogers played, it might have been a different story, but he was hurt. But yeah, unsuccessful season by Mississippi State, in my opinion. I believe Will Rogers is now gone, but I'll talk about that more when I talk about these SEC previews. We got to move on to Mizzou. I've been dreading this one. Man. I remember in the SEC preview, I said Eli Drinkowitz. It don't matter what billboard material you have as motivation. 66 is the best you'll get. And that was me. I said that was me being nice. Something along those lines. I said something along those lines of 66 is the best you're going to be, and I'm being nice. I had Mizzou going 3-9, 0-8. They was bringing back Brady Cook, which he had a bad year. I'm not going to lie. He had a bad year the year prior. Theo Weiss was the transfer in from Oklahoma. And I had in my notes 10 career touchdowns. So that was good. Cody Schrader, the walk-on, he returned at running back. That was good. They did have Jake Garcia transferring from the U. And I'm like, all right, that might be a quarterback competition there. Dominic Levitt, who was probably the best receiver the year prior. Again, he went to Georgia, so I thought that was a huge blow. But saying all that, Mizzou actually went 10-2, 6-2. So again, I apologize prior to Mizzou, but I'll do it again. I apologize because I disrespected y'all. I know I did. And y'all balled. I mean, balled. Put me to shame. Maybe should have won the LSU game if it wasn't for Brady Cook on them picks. Maybe could have won the LSU game. But, man, what a very – I'm going to start off with this now. Very successful season for Mizzou. I don't think I've seen Mizzou win 10 games since what? When they won the SEC East when Connor Shaw was in South Carolina. I can't even remember who was the quarterback at Mizzou. Was that? I don't think that was Matty Mark, was it? That might have been Matty Mark. I think Drew Lock was a little later. I want to say that was Matty Mark. Let me look. I'm looking right now. 2013, they went 12-2. 12-2, 7-1 in conference. I'm trying to figure out who's the quarterback real quick. Let me see stats. Let's just look at the stats in the Murray State game. Oh, why does this look like that? That looks nasty. Oh my God, this looks even worse. Okay, I'm gonna do this because I clicked on the official school website and this joint looked like some 1950s. Like it looks atrocious. I ain't gonna lie. I'm sorry. Let's go 2013. Here we go. ESPN right here. No. Oh, Matty Mark did take over. So Matty Mark was at one point a starter, but he wasn't like they didn't have a full starter. And that was the year that Auburn went to the Natty. They lost in Auburn, I believe. I believe this the year Auburn went to the Natty. But like this was the last time I remember Mizzou having that many wins. If I go, let's look. 13, 14, they went. Oh shoot, hold on. I forgot. 14 they went. Oh, they went 10-3 in 2014. Okay, cool. Now was when Mighty Mark was officially the starter, 2014. So the year after, that's 10 wins. 2015 they went 5 wins. So now was when Matty Mark and Drew Lock split. 2016, 4 wins. So I wasn't too far off. I missed the season where they went 10 wins. After the season I was talking about 7 wins. Y'all get the point. Mizzou had a once-in-a-lifetime season. Not once-in-a-lifetime. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take that back. They had an amazing run. They had one of those. It's like the Kentucky with Mark Stoops 2021. There we go. That's the perfect way to put it. But on to the schedule. I had them beating South Dakota. They won. I had them beating Middle Tennessee State. They won. I had them losing to Kansas State. They actually won that game. I had them. That was an offensive shootout, by the way. I had them beating Memphis. They won. I had them losing to Vandy. They actually won. I don't know how I had them losing to Vandy. That's just disrespectful. I had them losing to LSU. They lost. I had them losing to Kentucky. They won. I had them losing to South Carolina. They won. I had them losing to Georgia. They lost. I had them losing to Tennessee. They won. I had them losing to Florida. They won. And I had them losing to Arkansas, which they won. Again, finishing 10-2, 6-2, winning the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. So that's a win for me because you know how I feel about Ohio State. I had 5 games right and 7 games wrong. One of the few teams in the SEC I had more games wrong than right. But y'all already said it, man. Very successful season for Mizzou. See if they can build on that. They return. I think Luther Burden returns. I think Theo Weiss returns. I know Brady Cook returns. They return a lot. Cody Schrader's now gone, but they return them major core pieces on that offense. Can they compete possibly for an SEC title? There's no SEC East or West this year. Everything is won. The top 2 teams go to that SEC title game. Can they compete for a title? Can they compete for a playoff spot? It's now 12 teams in the playoffs. Can they be one of them 12 teams in that playoff spot? We'll see. Preview coming soon. Excuse me. But we got to move on to Ole Miss, a team I was super high on. Jackson Dart, my guy. The transfer from USC a couple years back. Lane Kiffin, offensive mastermind at Ole Miss. Quinshawn Judkins, who I had in the runnings for SEC Player of the Year. Now going to Ohio State, sad. But I had him in the running for SEC Player of the Year. They had a lot at Ole Miss. Walker Howard transferred in. I think that was, I don't know. But they did lose Jonathan Mingo to the NFL on the Panthers. Zachary Franklin was a disappointment. He transferred in from UTSA, and I'm like, bro, he's a dog. Frank Harris, what he did with Frank Harris at UTSA, I can only imagine what he's going to do with Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin. Didn't do much. Very disappointed. But, man, with the touchdown Trey Harris, and Dayton Wade, they show they behinds at Ole Miss. Judkins had a really good year at Ole Miss. I'm not going to lie. I was confused on why he transferred. But Trey Harris from Louisiana Tech, again, I call him touchdown Trey. He did his thing. The receivers, they did their thing at Ole Miss, man. I was just so disappointed about Zachary Franklin. But let's get into the season. They were coming off an 8-4 year. I had them going 10-2, 6-2, excuse me. Ole Miss finished 10-2, 6-2. Another perfect prediction by your boy. I had them beating Mercer, they won. I had them beating Tulane, they won. I had them beating Georgia Tech, they won. I had them losing to Bama, they lost. I had them beating LSU, they won. I had them beating Arkansas, they won. I had them beating Auburn, they won. I had them beating Vandy, they won. I had them beating Texas A&M, they won. I had them losing to Georgia, they lost. I had them beating Louisiana Monroe, excuse me. They won, and I had them beating Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Literally predicted the entire schedule correctly. 12 games right, no games wrong. 10-2, finished 6-2. They did win the Peach Bowl against Penn State. Another victory for me. I don't hate Penn State, to be honest. I have no ill will to Penn State, but Ty's a Penn State fan, and because Ty be talking trash, it was good to see them lose. They won 38-25 against Penn State in the Peach Bowl. Successful season, very successful season. One game, no, they were 2 games away from, because they're in SEC West. So no. Well, technically 2 games because they were 2 conference games behind Alabama. If they would have beat Bama, then they would have played for Georgia for the SEC title. But since they lost to Bama, they didn't play for the SEC title. But they got a New Year's Six bowl. They won 10 games, really won 11 with the bowl game win. Very successful year for Ole Miss. So shout out Lane Kiffin, shout out Jackson Dart, and they running it back. They both are back. I think Trey Harris is back. I think Dayton Wade is back. So it's a run back for the Ole Miss running Rebels, and I can't wait. Like I said, Jackson Dart is top 3 favorite quarterbacks in this. Because my favorite quarterback is probably Shedeur. No, I take that back. I think Shedeur is probably the most talented quarterback, but he's probably not my favorite. My favorite is Jackson Dart, to be honest. My favorite quarterback coming into this year is Jackson Dart. I love Shedeur. I love Quinn Ewers, but they're not my favorite. Jackson Dart this coming season is my favorite quarterback in college football, and I can't wait to watch him play. Oh, I knew I missed one. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I got to do a banner. I skipped a banner by accident. We are moving on to the South Carolina. My South Carolina boys season review. Now, Spencer Rattler was running it back. Shane Beamer had a magical year. They were coming off an 8-4, 4-4 year. I did not expect South Carolina to be that good the previous year, mainly defensively. And I said this before. Spencer Rattler, if he went to MSU, I'd have been like, all right, let's see what they're doing. But because of South Carolina and because South Carolina cannot recruit a quarterback to save their lives, it's probably been the best quarterback recruit South Carolina had since Connor Shaw. If you don't remember Connor Shaw, that was because that's like 2012, 2013 South Carolina, and that's like when he left. Connor Shaw was probably the best quarterback in South Carolina's recent history. So I was happy for Spencer in that aspect going to South Carolina, but I didn't expect much. 8-4 year, they did lose to Notre Dame in a bowl game, which I called. It was annoying, but I called it. Cam Smith, we lost both our corners, Cam Smith and Darius Rush, to the NFL. Juice Wells returned. Marshawn Lloyd, he actually transferred to USC. Josh Vann, we lost to the NFL. Nick Amaroy, he returned to safety. Trey Knox, he transferred to Arkansas. He transferred into Arkansas. I want to say before I say this, let me Google this because I want to say, yeah, I thought so. Yep, we lost Jaheim Bell to Florida State. Jaheim Bell was with South Carolina. He then went to Florida State. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. I almost said that, and I didn't write that down. So, but yeah, I had SC South Carolina. I had us again repeating 8-4, 5-3. Yeah, we went 5-7, 3-5. I had us beating North Carolina. We lost. Now let's talk about that North Carolina game for a second. Spencer Rattler was running for his life, like to the point where I thought North Carolina might have had a fire defense this season out of nowhere. Turns out North Carolina defense was not fire, and our O-line was just bad. I think they had 9 sacks that game, something in that ballpark. They absolutely destroyed Spence. But I had us winning, they lost. I had us beating Furman, they won. I had them losing to Georgia, they lost. I had them beating Mississippi State, they won. I had them losing to Tennessee, they lost. I had them beating Florida, again, defense didn't make the plays, we lost. I had us beating Mizzou, we lost. I had us losing to Texas A&M, we lost. I had us beating Jack State, which we won. Hurt my heart because y'all know I developed a strong connection for Jack State. Had us beating Vandy, we won. Had us beating Kentucky, we won. And had us losing to Clemson, which hurt, but we lost. I got 9 games right, 3 games wrong. All in all, the South Carolina season was not successful. Didn't at least get a bowl game coming off an 8-game season. Juice Wells got hurt, didn't return, and now I think, if I remember, Juice Wells, I think, transferred to Ole Miss. Hold on, let me Google this. I think Juice Wells transferred to Ole Miss. Yep. Yeah, I want to say. Yep, he transferred to Ole Miss. Absolutely did. So now you throw him in that mix. Oh, Ole Miss going to be tough. He transferred to Ole Miss, bro. Lost out one of our best receivers. Xavier Legette is now in the NFL, first-round pick. Shout out him. He was one of my sleepers. Shout out to him. He's now gone. Spencer Rattler's now gone. I don't know where we're going from here. We brought in, I want to say, A.J. Swan from Vandy, which, oh, God. All right, well. Let's make this work, Shane. But, man, this was an unsuccessful season. Defensively, we looked terrible. Offensive line looked terrible. Our biggest bright spot was our receivers. And like I said, we lost one. He got hurt. It was really Xavier Legette who was like our bright spot of the entire team. So, man, just a sad season for South Carolina. Hopefully, we could bounce back, but I don't really see how. Moving on. We got Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a 10-2 year, 6-2, mainly behind Herndon Hooker, who was now gone to the NFL, got drafted to the Lions. It was now Joe Milton's turn to step up. You know, Joe Milton got a lot of hype because of his arm talent. He could launch the ball 70, 80 yards, and it looked so effortless. My big thing on Joe Milton was accuracy concerns, which he kind of showed them this season that just passed. I had a Tennessee going 10-2, 6-2, repeating the year prior. They actually went 8-4, 4-4, 10 games right, 2 games wrong on my schedule prediction. I had them beating Virginia, which they won. I had them beating Austin Peay, they won. I had them beating Florida again. Just can't beat Florida and Florida for some reason. Had them beating UTSA, they won. I had them beating South Carolina, they won. I had them beating Texas A&M, they won. Had them losing to Bama, they lost. Had them beating Kentucky, they won. Had them beating UConn, they won. I had them beating Mizzou, they lost. I had them losing to Georgia, they lost. And I had them beating Vandy. Now, I think this was an unsuccessful season by Tennessee because a lot of people had Tennessee playing for a chance for the SEC title. And I get Georgia was on that side, so it's hard. But they didn't have a chance. Let me look at my standings. Tennessee they finished 3rd in the SEC East. So they finished behind Georgia and Mizzou. Like, I didn't think they was going to go to the SEC title game because of Georgia. But they weren't even 2nd in the SEC East. So even if Georgia wasn't there, they still went to the SEC. So I don't think it was a success. Why don't I have who they played in the bowl game? Oh, I forgot to write down who they played in the bowl game. Give me 1 second. I can't believe I forgot to do that. That's what I could have swore I did. But yeah, I don't think it was a successful season. Joe Milton didn't look that great to me. Oh, they won 35-0 against Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. So, that's the game. Nico Iamaleava had like 3 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. So, yeah, Tennessee beat Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. But like I said, man, Joe Milton didn't look as great to me. Tennessee had some struggles on offense at times. Defensively, I think they were cool. I know they got a guy on the edge who's supposed to, I can't remember his name right now, but he's supposed to be like one of the best defensive players in the country. But yeah, I just was unimpressed, in my opinion, by Tennessee this season. I really was. I felt like when Tennessee went against competition, they didn't do as great. Like I said, man, they lost to Mizzou, competition. They lost to Georgia, competition. They lost to Florida, which was disappointing. But yeah, I mean, Kentucky was a good win. Don't get me wrong. They lost to Bama, competition. So they beat the teams they were supposed to beat minus Florida, and they lost the teams they were supposed to lose to. It just is what it is with them. But we move on to Texas A&M. Texas A&M went 5-7, 2-6. The season prior, they lost Devon Achane to the NFL. Had an amazing rookie year with the Dolphins. They lost. Max Johnson returned. They lost Haynes King, who went to Georgia Tech. Had a pretty decent year. Got a little turnover prone. Tony Grimes, the cornerback, transfers in from UNC. Evan Stewart returns. Moose Muhammad returned, which I mean, Moose Muhammad did cool, but he wasn't Anaya Smith or Evan Stewart. Now Evan Stewart is with Oregon, and Anaya Smith is on the Eagles. But man, I didn't have much expectations for Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher has been a disappointment outside of that 1 year, which was coming off of COVID, I believe. I think that was the 2021 season. Other than that, Jimbo Fisher has been very, very lackluster, especially with his offenses. His defense has been good, but his offenses has, like I said, left a lot to be desired. Like once Isaiah Spiller left, it just went downhill. I had them going 7-5, 3-5. They went 7-5, 4-4. So I got the overall record correct. I just missed the conference record by one game. Had them beating New Mexico, which they won. I had them beating the U, which they lost. Had them beating UN Monroe, they won. I had them beating Auburn, they won. I had them losing to Arkansas, they won. Had them losing to Bama, they lost. Had them losing to Tennessee, they lost. Had them beating South Carolina, they won. Had them losing to Ole Miss, they lost. Had them beating Mississippi State, they won. I had them beating Abilene Christian, they won. I had them losing to LSU. I got 10 games right, 2 games wrong. They did end up losing the Texas Bowl to Oklahoma State. Man, Oklahoma State receivers went stupid. Brendan Presley and I think Rashad Owens. I'm sorry, I know I butchered your name. But yeah, those receivers absolutely went stupid for Oklahoma State. But in my opinion, 7-5, 4-4 is successful for Texas A&M. No, I take that back. No, this was an unsuccessful season. Sorry. I think they had like a very highly touted recruiting class. Jimbo Fisher now gets fired because of this season. He was nowhere like the recruiting classes they bring in. I remember they were like second to Bama or something like that. They were competing with Bama at some point, something like that. I know Nick Saban made a fuss about it because of NIL and all that. Unsuccessful season. Jimbo Fisher offense was absolutely atrocious. The offense was not good. They had their players, like I said, like Anaya Smith, who made plays on special teams and on the offense. Evan Stewart, who made plays offensively, but this right here, 7-5, unsuccessful, and that's why Jimbo Fisher has been let go. And Mike Elko ushers in a new era with the Aggies. Now, my thing with Elko is going to bring the same thing. Elko's going to bring in defense. Where's the offense going to come from? But maybe he gets a fire. I can't remember who his OC is at the moment. Maybe he has a fire OC who could turn that around. But we got to move on to our last team to talk about tonight, and that's Vandy. Vandy was coming off a 5-7, 2-6 year. Everything was looking like, it might be on the up and up. I had Vandy finishing 5-7, 1-7. They finished 2-10, 0-8. Very, very bad year for Vandy. I had higher hopes because I loved Will Sheppard. Will Sheppard, to me, is a dog. I was hearing a lot of noise about A.J. Swan. Didn't like what I saw in South Carolina. Jaden McGowan, another wide receiver, he was good. I think he's also at South Carolina now. But, man, let's just get into the schedule. So, Vandy, I had them beating Hawaii. They won. I had them beating Alabama A&M. They won. I think they barely escaped Hawaii, by the way. I had them beating Wake Forest. They lost. They actually lost out the rest of the schedule. So, I'm going to just say this. Had them beating Wake Forest, they lost. Had them beating the UNLV, they lost. I had them beating Mizzou, they lost. And then all the other ones I had correct with losses. I had 9 games right, 3 games wrong. Very, very bad season. Very unsuccessful season for Vandy. Could not give me one SEC win. I only had y'all having one SEC win. Y'all couldn't get one. So, very unsuccessful season. I don't know what Clark Lee and the boys are going to do, but they need to do something quick or they might be out of a job. So, good luck, Vandy. You get 2 tougher teams in your conference. Man. But we got to move on to the SEC postseason. So, my predicted postseason was Alabama versus Georgia for the SEC championship, which Alabama wins. And Alabama did just that. They won 27-24 against Georgia in the SEC title game. Moving on to the playoffs. My standings my SEC player of the year was Jace McClellan, running back for Alabama. The offensive player of the year ended up being Jaden Daniels, as you all know. And the defensive player of the year ended up being Dallas Turner of Alabama. Now, here's my predicted SEC standings. So 1 was Georgia, 2 was Tennessee, 3 was South Carolina, 4 was Florida, 5 was Kentucky, 6 was Vandy, and 7 was Mizzou, which is disrespectful to Mizzou. Again, I apologize. My SEC West predictions were Alabama at 1, Ole Miss at 2, LSU at 3, Arkansas at 4, Texas A&M at 5, Auburn at 6, and Mississippi State at 7. Now, the actual SEC standings went like this. Georgia 12-0, 8-0 at 1, Mizzou at 2, Tennessee at 3, Kentucky at 4, Florida at 5, South Carolina at 6, and Vandy at 7. The only thing I got right about the SEC East was Georgia at 1. Literally, the only thing I got right. I mean, I flipped Kentucky and Florida. Vandy was close, but no cigar. Only thing I got right. As I get the notification that the Tigers win, baby. Tigers win 3-1. SEC West. I got the first 3. I got the top 3 correct. I got Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU correct. Texas A&M, I had at 5. They finished 4th. Had Auburn at 6. They finished 5th. And Mississippi State, I had at 6. They finished 7th. Arkansas, I had at 4th. They finished last. So I got the top 3 right. Everything else wrong about the SEC West. But that was the SEC. That is the show for tonight. You will have me and Ace back on the show next week. I don't have a time or a date. Ace is supposed to call me whenever he's free from work. Because remember, if you remember, we gave y'all 10 group of 5 schools to be on the lookout for. And we got to review those, of course. We got to review the 10 schools we gave y'all to look out for to see if we did a good job of giving y'all schools to look out for. Hey, look, I know one off top was a great job in JMU. But we definitely got to get look into those. So be on the lookout for that next week. So again, time and date will be to be determined. Again, man, it's almost that time. It's June 4th. NCAA 25, the video game is here in a month and some change. And right after that, we got the season and a month and some change again. Now we got some college football to play until college football season is here. Can't wait for the game. I can't wait for that. But the Power 5 conferences is now over. I have reviewed every Power 5 conference. I have previewed. What an amazing time it was. Again, the SEC was much better than me. I will say that because the Big 12 and the Pac-12 did me dirty. Did me absolutely dirty. But again, just be on the lookout for me and Ace show next week. And then we got the coaching trees. And then, hey, look, I got to get to the whiteboard and I'll let y'all know what's coming up. But until next week, until I see y'all again, I'm gone. Peace.
Thank you for staying to the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe, and also hit that notification button so you can be notified next time we put out a video. If you're listening on any podcast platform, subscribe and hit that notification button, y'all, so you can be notified we put out another podcast audio. And last but not least, hit that share button. No matter what you're listening to or watching it, hit that share button and send it to somebody that you know that would love to watch this episode you just listened to. So once again, thank you for staying to the end, and we'll see y'all at the next episode.